Hi, I'm Adam Mead, the Executive Chef at Locale Restaurant for De Bortley Wines in the Yarra Valley. Today we're here actually in the Griffith at De Bortley Wines in the garden of Emery De Bortley's house. So we're going to be making a classic Italian dessert, a tiramisu, or my version of a tiramisu. Okay, so for that tiramisu we're going to use some very nice, highly awarded chaud liqueur muscat. So what we need to do, first of all, is whip the cream. So I'm working with a relatively small amount here, so I'm just going to whip that by hand. Just set that aside in the fridge. So the next step of making an asabione is to combine the alcohol. In this case, we're using the chaud muscat liqueur. So we've combined liqueur there with just our egg yolks and sugar. And we've got a pot of water here that's just coming to the simmer. We're going to whisk it as we're cooking it, and that will eventually become quite thick as a custard. It's actually quite a long process, so you just need to keep whisking that pretty much constantly. As those egg yolks cook, it will thicken the mix, and that's what we're looking for. It's just important that when you're cooking a zabaglione, that the water is just simmering and that it's not actually touching or close to the bowl. You're looking for the steam. You want the steam to be cooking the eggs, not the actual water touching the bowl. So when you move your whisk and you move it in a figure of 8 pattern, you want to see that 8 remain on top of the sabaglione. That's how you know that it's cooked. Now that we've finished cooking the zabaglione, I've got some ice in that bowl, and that's just to cool it down quickly and to make sure that the eggs or the yolks don't scramble. That zabaglione is now cooled down, so we can now assemble our tiramisu. This is actually a savoiardi biscuit recipe, and I've just baked that in whole sheets to give me a more consistent biscuit layer through the tiramisu. So now we've got our whipped cream. We're going to fold that together with the mascarpone. We just want to make sure that the mascarpone is evenly distributed through that cream. That way you won't end up with lumps or with a different texture through your finished tiramisu. Normally when we're folding one into the other of this type of product, we'd mix half of the mixture and fold that through, followed by the remaining half. It's actually not a vital step in this case. It's just a habit that we're in the kitchen, especially when folding egg whites, that we fold through a smaller portion of the egg whites before we fold through the rest of the mix, and that helps to maintain the lightness of that mix that you've created. And the final step in this particular tiramisu, we're using a small amount of gelatin, and that is really just to guarantee the stability and the consistency of the mix. So we've softened some gelatin in ice water, but you want the gelatin to soften in the ice water, not to actually start to dissolve. Squeeze out any excess liquid, and we just want to dissolve that gelatin. We'll just transfer that to a small stainless steel bowl, and we'll fold it through a small amount of the mix before we fold it back into the whole base. And the main thing that gives you the colour in the cream of your tiramisu is always a liqueur. In this case we've used the chaud liqueur muscat, and it's quite a darker, deep coloured fortified liqueur, so that's why it has a darker colour to the tiramisu cream. Okay, at this stage we're just going to put the tiramisu together. We've got our biscuits here. Personally, I prefer just to brush on the espresso. In some cases, you may like to soak your savoiardi biscuits, if you have the smaller ones, in an espresso. So we've got our first layer of biscuit down. We add about 1/3 of that cream mix, and we use a pastry scraper then to spread it out evenly. Then we'll add our second layer of biscuit, and in this case, I've just made the second layer of savoiardi with some cocoa powder in there, just to give a little bit of contrast between a vanilla biscuit and then a chocolate biscuit. And we'll now add our second layer, leaving around 1/3 of the mix to finish off the tiramisu. If you have a small pastry scraper, it just makes it quite easy to spread that mix evenly. It's something that we use in the restaurant for a lot of different things. We're going to finish the tiramisu with the final layer of the vanilla-based biscuit. We'll now finish the top layer of our tiramisu with the remaining cream. The tiramisu now just needs to go in the fridge to set, ideally overnight, but even just a couple of hours, and that will give time for the coffee to infuse its flavour through those biscuits. Just grab this tiramisu out of the fridge, and we're just tossing it with cocoa powder to finish. And there's a good generous portion of our tiramisu, and a lovely drink to go with that would be the same liqueur that we use, the award-winning chaud liqueur muscat. That'd be beautiful with this tiramisu. Cheers.